The cargo ship drifted through empty space like a tired bird crossing an endless ocean. Inside the cockpit, Dae-hyun sat with his boots propped up on the control panel, eating instant noodles straight from the cup. The stars outside looked the same as they had for the past 3 weeks, just tiny dots of light scattered across the black void. He hated these long hauls. The pay was decent, but the loneliness ate at him. The ship's computer hummed quietly, monitoring systems while he pretended to care about anything. His life had become simple after leaving the military. Fly cargo from point A to point B. Get paid, repeat. No complications, no battles, no watching friends die. That was the plan anyway. The computer beeped. A soft sound at first, then more insistent. Dae-hyun ignored it, slurping his noodles. The beeping got louder. He sighed and pulled his boots down, setting the cup aside. The screen showed a signal coming from somewhere nearby. Well, nearby in space terms meant about 2 hours away. He tapped the screen to pull up the details. A distress call. His jaw tightened. Distress calls meant trouble, and trouble was exactly what he'd been avoiding for 5 years. The signal was weak and breaking up. He turned up the volume. Static filled the cockpit. Then a voice came through. It wasn't human. The words were strange, musical almost, but filled with terror. The ship's translation software kicked in, trying to make sense of the alien language. Words appeared on the screen in fragments. Help. Trapped. Creatures everywhere. They're breaking through. Please. Anyone. Dae-hyun stared at the screen. His finger hovered over the delete button. Protocol was clear. Human ships weren't supposed to respond to alien distress calls in this sector. Too dangerous. Too many variables. The governments had their treaties and their rules. Stay out of alien problems. He could just erase the message, pretend he never heard it, continue to his destination and collect his payment. That was the smart choice, the safe choice. His hand moved away from the delete button. He thought about his sister Hana, how she'd sent a distress call when her research station came under attack, how she'd waited for help that never came because she was in a disputed zone and nobody wanted to risk an incident. By the time anyone cared enough to check, she was already dead. Damn it, Dae-hyun muttered. He punched in new coordinates, and the ship's engines hummed louder as they changed course. He was probably going to regret this. 2 hours later, a small moon came into view. It was gray and ugly, covered in craters and dust. A research facility sat on the surface like a metal spider. Parts of it were on fire. As Dae-hyun brought his ship closer, he could see holes torn in the walls. Something bad had happened here. He landed his ship a safe distance away and suited up. The moon had breathable atmosphere according to his scans, but he wasn't taking chances. He grabbed his toolkit, which included a plasma cutter and a shock baton. Not military weapons, but they'd have to do. The facility's airlock was damaged but functional. He cycled through and entered a dark corridor. Emergency lights flickered, casting red shadows everywhere. The walls were scratched and dented. Long claw marks ran along the metal. Blood was splattered in places, though he couldn't tell if it was human or alien. He heard sounds deeper in the facility. Growling, clicking, things moving in the darkness. Dae-hyun activated his helmet's light and moved forward carefully. His military training came back like muscle memory. Check corners, watch your back, stay alert. A creature lunged at him from a side passage. It was like nothing he'd ever seen. 4 legs, a mouth full of teeth, and armored skin that looked like it could stop bullets. Dae-hyun swung his shock baton and caught it in the jaw. Electricity crackled, and the creature yelped, falling back. He hit it twice more until it stopped moving. More growling echoed through the halls. He started running. The distress signal led him to a laboratory deep in the facility. The door was barricaded with furniture and equipment. He pounded on it. "Anyone in there? I'm here to help." Silence. Then a voice, small and scared. Human? Yes! Open the door! The creatures! They're everywhere! I know! That's why we need to move now! He heard scraping sounds as the barricade was pulled apart. The door slid open just enough for him to squeeze through. Inside, the lab was a mess. Broken equipment, scattered papers, and in the middle of it all stood a girl. She wasn't human. Her skin had a pale blue tint, and strange markings ran along her arms and face. Those markings were glowing faintly, pulsing with light. She was young, probably early 20s in human terms, and she looked terrified. Her clothes were torn, and she had cuts on her hands. "I'm Lyra," she said in accented but clear English. You actually came? I didn't think anyone would answer." "Yeah, well, I'm probably crazy," Daehyun said. "We need to leave, right now. How many creatures are there?" "Too many. They multiply fast. My team tried to contain them, but..." Her voice broke. "I'm the only one left." A heavy thud hit the door from outside. Then another. The creatures had found them. "We're going out the other way," Daehyun said, looking around. He spotted a ventilation shaft. "Can you climb?" Lyra nodded. He helped her up into the shaft, then pulled himself up after her. Behind them, the door began to buckle under the assault. They crawled through the tight space as fast as they could. The sound of tearing metal followed them. They emerged in a storage bay. Daehyun's ship was visible through the window, sitting on the surface outside. So close. But between them and the airlock stood at least a dozen of those creatures. They turned as one when Daehyun and Lyra dropped from the shaft. "Run!" Daehyun shouted. They ran. He fired his shock baton at anything that got close while Lyra dodged and weaved. She was fast and graceful despite her fear. They reached the airlock and Daehyun slammed the control. The door closed just as the creatures reached them. Teeth and claws scraped against the other side. They cycled through and sprinted to the ship. Daehyun practically threw Lyra inside and jumped into the pilot's seat. The engines roared to life. As they lifted off, he saw the facility's reactor beginning to glow. It was going critical. "Hold on!" he yelled. The ship shot upward just as the facility exploded behind them. The shockwave caught them and sent them spinning. Daehyun fought with the controls, finally stabilizing them. They were alive. Somehow, impossibly, they were alive. In the seat beside him, Lyra was breathing hard. Her markings were glowing brighter now, pulsing rapidly. She looked at him with wide eyes filled with something between shock and gratitude. "You saved me," she whispered. "Why?" Daehyun didn't have a good answer. "Someone needed help," he said finally. "That's enough." Behind them, the moon was growing smaller. Ahead lay empty space and a million unknown dangers. But for the first time in years, Daehyun felt like he'd done something that mattered. He just hoped they'd survive long enough to figure out what came next. The ship flew through space on autopilot while Daehyun checked their systems. Everything was running hot but functional. The explosion had rattled them but hadn't caused serious damage. Small victories. In the passenger seat, Lyra sat very still. Her glowing markings had faded to a dim pulse. She kept looking around the cockpit like she expected monsters to appear from the walls. Daehyun couldn't blame her. He'd seen what those creatures could do. "You're safe now," he said, not looking up from his diagnostic screen. "Safe," Lyra repeated the word like she was testing it. "I watched them tear through reinforced doors. I watched my friends die. Safe is a strange word." Daehyun pulled out a medical kit. "Let me see your hands." She held them out. The cuts weren't deep, but they needed cleaning. He worked quietly, applying antiseptic and bandages. She winced, but didn't pull away. Her skin felt cooler than human skin, and those markings under his fingers pulsed with a soft blue light. "What are you?" he asked, then quickly added, "I mean, what's your species called?" Valoran, she said. We're from the Valar system, about 600 light-years from here. She watched him wrap her hands. You're very gentle for a soldier. Former soldier. And field medicine was part of the training. Why did you leave? He didn't answer. Instead, he finished the bandaging and sat back. Your turn. What were you doing on that moon? What were those creatures? Lyra's markings flickered, turning slightly darker. My team was researching artifacts, ancient technology left behind by a dead civilization. We found containers on Theta 7. They were beautiful, covered in markings that matched other sites we'd studied. She paused. We thought they were storage devices for data or energy. We were wrong. They were eggs, Dae-hyun guessed. Yes. When we opened the first container, nothing happened immediately. Then one of the researchers got sick. By the time we realized what was happening, the creatures were everywhere. They reproduced so fast. Within 3 days, my entire team was gone except me. How did you survive? I hid. I'm good at hiding. Her voice was bitter. While braver people fought, I locked myself in the lab and waited to die. You sent a distress call. That took courage. Desperation isn't courage. Dae-hyun stood and moved to the food storage. He pulled out 2 ration bars and tossed one to Lyra. She caught it clumsily. Eat! You need energy. She examined the bar suspiciously. What is this? Food, barely. It tastes like cardboard, but it'll keep you alive. She took a small bite and her face twisted. This is horrible. Welcome to human space travel. They ate in silence for a while. Then the ship's computer beeped. Incoming transmission. Dae-hyun frowned and pulled it up. The message was tagged as high priority and came from a corporate frequency. He played it. A man's face appeared on the screen. He was middle-aged with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. Attention cargo vessel. You are in possession of stolen property belonging to Hanil's syndicate. Surrender the Valoran female immediately and you will be compensated for your trouble. Resist and face legal action. The transmission ended. Lyra had gone very pale. Her markings were pulsing rapidly. No, 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 no. They found me already. Who's Hanil's syndicate? A corporation. They funded our research. When the creatures appeared, they didn't want us to destroy them. They wanted to study them, to weaponize them. She stood up quickly. My team leader refused. We were going to report them to the council. That's when communications were cut and the creatures were released throughout the facility. It wasn't an accident. It was murder. Dae-hyun felt his jaw tighten. They killed your team on purpose? They wanted to eliminate witnesses. I'm the only one who survived, the only one who knows what they did. She looked at him with desperate eyes. You need to let me go. If you're caught with me, they'll kill you too. Not happening. You don't understand. I understand fine. A corporation murdered a bunch of scientists, and now they want to clean up loose ends. I've seen this story before. He turned back to the controls. We're not surrendering you to anyone. Before Lyra could respond, the ship's sensors screamed a warning. 3 vessels were approaching fast, mercenary ships by the look of them. Armed and not friendly. Here we go, Dae-hyun muttered. He killed the autopilot and took manual control. Strap in! The first shot missed them by meters. Dae-hyun threw the ship into a dive, heading toward a nearby asteroid field. The mercenaries followed, firing continuously. The cargo ship wasn't built for combat, but it was maneuverable. Can you use a computer? Dae-hyun shouted over the sound of impacts on their shields. Yes! The console to your right. Hack their communications. Jam their targeting. Anything. Lyra's fingers flew over the controls. Her markings were glowing bright now, almost white. I'm trying. Their encryption is military grade. Try harder. They weaved between asteroids. One of the mercenary ships wasn't fast enough and clipped an asteroid, spiraling away. 2 left. Dae-hyun pushed the engines as hard as they'd go. The ship groaned in protest. "Got it," Lyra shouted. "Their targeting systems are offline for 30 seconds. "That'll do!" Dae-hyun guided them through a narrow gap between two massive asteroids. The mercenary ships tried to follow, but they were bigger, less agile. One made it through. The other didn't, and exploded in a brilliant flash. The last mercenary ship was right on their tail. Dae-hyun looked at his fuel readings. They were running low. They couldn't keep this up forever. "There," Lyra pointed. "That station. Seojin Harbor." A space station loomed ahead, a massive structure with docking bays and defensive weapons. If they could reach it, they'd be safe. Stations had rules. No combat in the vicinity. The mercenary ship fired one last shot. It hit their engine. Alarms screamed. The ship lurched forward, spinning out of control. Dae-hyun fought the controls, trying to stabilize them. They were tumbling toward the station way too fast. "Brace!" he shouted. They hit the docking bay's emergency nets. The impact threw them forward against their restraints. Metal screeched, then everything stopped. Silence. Dae-hyun's ears were ringing. He looked over at Lyra. She was dazed but alive. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "That was terrifying." "Yeah, you did good, though. That hacking saved us. We're still alive because you can fly like a madman." He smiled despite himself. "I'll take that as a compliment." Station security was already approaching their damaged ship. Through the window, Dae-hyun could see armed guards. This was going to be complicated, but at least they weren't dead, and the mercenaries couldn't touch them here. Lyra touched his arm. Her markings were pulsing in a steady, warm gold color. "Thank you. Again. You keep saving my life." "Let's hope I can keep it up," Dae-hyun said. He looked at the approaching guards. "Because something tells me this is just the beginning." The guards reached the ship and motioned for them to exit. Dae-hyun took a deep breath. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. He'd made his choice back on that moon. There was no going back now. And strangely, he didn't want to. For the first time in 5 years, he felt like he was doing something that mattered, something worth fighting for, even if it got him killed. He just hoped Lyra was worth all this trouble. Looking at her determined face and those glowing markings, he suspected she was. Seojin Harbor was bigger inside than it looked from space. The docking bay opened into a massive corridor filled with beings from a dozen different species. Humans, aliens with scales, others with too many arms, some that floated instead of walked. Lyra stayed close to Dae-hyun as they moved through the crowd. Station security had questioned them for 2 hours. Dae-hyun had kept his answers simple. Engine failure. Emergency landing. Nothing about mercenaries or corporations or murder. The security chief, a tired-looking human named Kyung-soo, had clearly known there was more to the story but let them go anyway. "Your ship needs major repairs," Kyung-soo had said. "It'll take 3 days minimum. Don't cause trouble while you're here." Now they walked through the station's market district. Vendors shouted in multiple languages. The air smelled like cooking food and machine oil. Lyra kept staring at everything, her markings flickering with different colors. "You've never been to a mixed station before?" Dae-hyun asked. "We Valoran mostly keep to ourselves. My species doesn't travel much outside our territory." She watched a group of laughing traders pass by. "We're taught that other species are dangerous, that we should be cautious." "Are we? Dangerous?" She looked at him. "You answered a distress call from a stranger." "You fought monsters to save me. You're risking your life to protect me from a corporation." Her markings turned soft gold. "If that's dangerous, then I'll take my chances." Dae-hyun felt heat rise to his face. He quickly changed the subject. "We need supplies. Food, fuel cells, anything we can use if we need to run again." They spent the next hour gathering supplies. Lyra proved useful, using her technical knowledge to pick the best equipment. She also haggled with vendors in broken trade language, her markings flashing in what Dae-hyun was learning meant determination. As they walked back to their temporary quarters, Dae-hyun's communicator buzzed. He checked it, and his expression darkened. "I need to make a call. Wait here." He stepped into a private booth and dialed a secure line. After a moment, a woman's face appeared on the screen. She had sharp eyes and wore a military intelligence uniform. "Dae-hyun?" Bo-ra looked surprised. "I haven't heard from you in 2 years. What's wrong?" "I need information on Hanil Syndicate." Her expression immediately became serious. "Why are you asking about them?" "Because they're trying to kill me and someone I'm protecting." Bo-ra was quiet for a long moment. "Dae-hyun, Hanil Syndicate has connections everywhere. Government, military, corporate council, they're not people you want as enemies." "Too late for that." She sighed. "What did you do?" He told her everything. The distress call, Lyra, the creatures, the mercenaries. Bo-ra listened without interrupting. When he finished, she looked worried. "Those artifacts you mentioned?" "We've been tracking reports of similar containers appearing across multiple systems, strange outbreaks following archaeological discoveries." She pulled up files on her screen. "We suspected corporate involvement but couldn't prove it. If what your Valoran friend says is true, this is bigger than just murder. This is biological warfare." "Can you help us?" "Officially? No. Unofficially?" She smiled slightly. "I'll dig into their operations, see what I can find. But Dae-hyun, you need to be careful. These people don't leave witnesses. I noticed. I'm serious. You were a good soldier. Don't die playing hero." "I'll try." The call ended. Dae-hyun sat in the booth for a moment, processing everything. He'd known this was bad, but hearing Bo-ra confirm it made it real. They weren't just running from mercenaries. They were up against something much bigger. When he returned, Lyra was examining his music collection on a portable player he'd bought. She had the earpieces in and was swaying slightly to the rhythm. "This is beautiful," she said when she noticed him. "What is it? Old Earth music? Jazz? My sister loved it." "Loved? Past tense." He sat down. "She died 5 years ago. She was a researcher like you, got caught in a conflict zone, and nobody came to help." Lyra removed the earpieces. Her markings had turned deep blue. "I'm sorry. Is that why you answered my call? Because of her?" "Maybe. I don't know." He ran a hand through his hair. "I just knew I couldn't ignore someone asking for help. Not again." She moved closer and carefully took his hand. Her skin was cool and smooth. "Your sister would be proud of you." They sat like that for a while, not speaking. Then Lyra broke the silence. "I should tell you about the Valoran, about what those markings mean that you keep staring at." "I wasn't staring." "You were." She smiled slightly. "It's okay. They show my emotions. Blue for sadness, red for fear, gold for happiness or gratitude, white for excitement. Every Valoran wears their feelings on their skin. That must make lying difficult. Impossible, which is why we value honesty so much." Her markings shifted to soft pink. "This color means I feel safe. I haven't felt this way since before the outbreak." Dae-hyun realized he was still holding her hand. He cleared his throat. "We should rest. Tomorrow we start repairs." That night, Dae-hyun couldn't sleep. He lay on the small bunk in their quarters, staring at the ceiling. Across the room, Lyra was curled up on another bunk, her markings dim but still faintly glowing. He'd spent 5 years avoiding exactly this situation. Complications, attachments, reasons to care. Now he was protecting an alien girl from a mega corporation, and somehow it felt right, like this was what he was supposed to be doing. His communicator buzzed. A text message from Bo-ra, short and urgent. "Get out of there, now. They know where you are." Before Dae-hyun could move, Alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed. An announcement echoed through the corridors in multiple languages. Security alert! Hostile entities detected in Docking Bay 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. Lyra sat up, instantly awake. What's happening? Dae-hyun was already pulling on his boots and grabbing his equipment. We're leaving, now! They ran into the corridor. Other people were running too, but away from Docking Bay 7. Dae-hyun and Lyra ran toward it. They had to reach their ship. The sounds reached them first. Growling, screaming, the wet, tearing sounds of violence. Dae-hyun's blood went cold. Those sounds were familiar. The creatures, Lyra whispered. They're here. They rounded a corner and stopped. The docking bay was chaos. Those same monsters from Theta 7 were everywhere, attacking anyone they could reach. Station security fired weapons, but there were too many. And among the creatures, Dae-hyun spotted armed mercenaries in combat armor. They brought the creatures, he said. Used them as weapons. A man in expensive armor stood directing the mercenaries. Tae-jin, the lead bounty hunter. He spotted them and smiled coldly. There she is! Take her alive! Kill the human! Run! Dae-hyun shoved Lyra behind him as gunfire erupted. They dodged through the chaos. A creature lunged at them and Dae-hyun shot it with his shock baton. Another came from the side, but Lyra kicked it hard, surprisingly strong for her size. They fought their way forward. Kyung-soo appeared with a squad of security. What the hell did you bring to my station? Not us! Them! Dae-hyun pointed at the mercenaries. Kyung-soo cursed and opened fire on the mercenaries. Bay 4! There's a fast ship there! Take it and get out! What about you? We'll handle this! Go! They ran. Behind them, the battle intensified. Explosions, screams. The station was tearing itself apart. They reached Bay 4 and found a sleek ship with its engines already running. Someone had prepared it for a quick escape. Thank you, Kyung-soo, Dae-hyun muttered. They jumped in. Dae-hyun took the controls and fired the engines. The ship shot out of the bay just as a section of the station exploded behind them. They cleared the station and kept going, pushing the engines to maximum. Lyra was shaking. Her markings were flashing multiple colors rapidly. They're following me. Somehow those creatures can track me. How? I don't know. Maybe when I was exposed to them, they marked me somehow. Biologically. She looked at him with terrified eyes. Everyone around me dies. You should leave me somewhere. Save yourself. Not happening. Dae-hyun, I said not happening. He set the course for deep space. We're going to figure this out, together, and then we're going to stop these people. How? I don't know yet, but we will. He looked at her. Trust me. Her markings slowly settled into steady gold. I do. I don't know why, but I do. Behind them, Seojin Harbor burned. Ahead was empty space and uncertainty, but they were alive and together. For now, that was enough. 3 days in deep space gave them time to think, and plan, and worry. The ship they'd stolen was better than Dae-hyun's old cargo hauler. Faster engines, better weapons, proper life support. Kyung-soo had given them a gift, even if it had cost his station dearly. Dae-hyun hoped the security chief had survived. Lyra spent hours at the computer, analyzing data she'd managed to save from Theta 7. Her markings shifted between deep blue concentration and red frustration. Dae-hyun brought her food and made sure she rested. She was pushing herself too hard. I found something, she said on the 3rd day. Her voice was tired but excited. Look at this. Dae-hyun leaned over her shoulder. The screen showed shipping manifests and corporate records. What am I looking at? Hanil's syndicate has been distributing these artifact containers across 12 systems, all of them listed as archaeological finds, all of them sent to research facilities. She pulled up a map showing the locations. 3 of them have already reported outbreaks. The others are just waiting to open their containers. They're spreading the creatures on purpose. Yes, but why? What do they gain? Dae-hyun thought about it. Fear, chaos, and then they offer the solution, Lyra finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. They create the problem and then sell themselves as saviors, weapons to fight the creatures, security services, protection. It's brilliant in a horrible way. They destabilize entire systems and then profit from fixing it. Dae-hyun felt sick. How many people have died already? Lyra's markings turned dark blue. Hundreds, maybe thousands, and it will be millions if we don't stop them. We need proof, something concrete we can take to the authorities. I have the data from Theta 7, but Hanil's syndicate has lawyers and politicians. They'll bury it. She looked at him. We need more than data. We need to expose their leader. Show the galaxy what he's doing. Dae-hyun pulled up information on Hanil's syndicate. The CEO was a man named Young Sik, 53 years old, human, from Earth originally, wealthy beyond imagination, powerful connections everywhere. He's untouchable, Dae-hyun muttered. Everyone is touchable if you know their weakness. And what's his? Lyra smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Pride? Look at his public statements. He loves attention. Loves being seen as a genius, a visionary. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. He's scheduled to give a presentation at the Galactic Trade Summit in 6 days. He's going to unveil a new security service to deal with the creature outbreaks. He's going to present himself as the solution to the problem he created. Exactly. But what if we exposed him there? In front of the entire galaxy. It was a crazy idea. The kind of idea that got people killed. But it might work. We'd need to get to Valar. That's where the summit is being held, and we'd need help. My people, Lyra said quietly. If we can reach my homeworld, if I can convince the council, they might help us. Will they listen? They have to. Because Valar is on the list. She pulled up the shipping manifests again. One of those artifact containers is being delivered to Valar's capital in 5 days. Dae-hyun felt cold. They're targeting your home? Yes, and my people have no idea what's coming. Her markings were flashing red. We have to warn them. We have to stop this. They set course for Valar immediately. The journey would take 4 days at maximum speed. 4 days to plan. 4 days to prepare. 4 days to figure out how to stop a megacorporation with unlimited resources. During the journey, Dae-hyun taught Lyra how to fight. She was naturally graceful but had no combat training. He showed her basic self-defense, how to fall without getting hurt, where to strike to disable an attacker. Humans are violent, she said after a particularly intense session. Her markings were white with exhilaration. Humans are survivors. There's a difference. Is there? We fight when we have to, but most of us would rather not. He offered her water. We're capable of great violence, yeah, but also great kindness. It's about choice. She drank the water and studied him. You've seen a lot of violence. Too much. Is that why you left the military? He didn't answer right away. They'd been dancing around his past for days. Maybe it was time to tell her. I was part of a unit that got ambushed. My squad. We were pinned down, taking heavy fire. I called for backup, but command said we were in a disputed zone. Political complications. They couldn't help us. What happened? I watched my friends die one by one. Waited for help that never came. By the time the politicians sorted out their problems, I was the only one left alive. His voice was flat. So I left. Couldn't trust the system anymore, couldn't trust anyone. Lyra put her hand on his arm. Her markings were soft pink. But you trust me. Yeah, I do. Don't ask me why. Maybe because trust isn't logical. Maybe it's just something we feel. They stood like that for a moment. Then Dae-hyun cleared his throat. We should keep training. On the 4th day, Valar appeared ahead of them. It was beautiful. a blue and green world covered in crystal formations that caught the light and made the whole planet shimmer. Cities built into the crystals glowed with soft colors. It looked like something from a dream. "Home," Lyra whispered. Her markings were bright gold. They entered orbit and immediately faced a challenge ship. Valoran security was tight. The pilot's voice came through in their language, which the translator rendered as, "Identify yourself and state your business." Lyra took the communicator. She spoke in her native tongue, which sounded like music. Dae-hyun couldn't understand the words, but he heard the emotion: desperation, urgency, fear. There was a long pause. Then, "Lyra, you're alive? We thought you died on Theta 7. "I survived. I need to speak to the council immediately. I have a human with me." "He saved my life. Please, it's urgent." Another pause. "Landing clearance granted. Bay 7. Council will meet you there." They descended through Valar's atmosphere. Up close, the crystal cities were even more stunning. Thousands of buildings growing from the ground like beautiful trees. Valoran people moved through the streets, all of them with glowing markings like Lyra's. They landed in a bay carved from crystal. Waiting for them was a group of officials and one older Valoran woman whose markings were bright gold. "Mother!" Lyra ran to her. The woman embraced her daughter. "We mourned you. We thought you were gone." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," Lyra was crying. "But we don't have time. Something terrible is coming." The council gathered in a chamber that looked like the inside of a geode, beautiful and ancient and powerful. Lyra presented their evidence while Dae-hyun stood beside her. The council members listened with expressions ranging from shock to disbelief. "You're saying a human corporation is deliberately spreading these creatures?" one council member asked. "Yes," Lyra said firmly, "and Valar is their next target." "Why should we believe this human?" another asked, looking at Dae-hyun with suspicion. "His species started this." "One human started this," Lyra corrected. "This human stopped it. He saved my life 3 times. He risked everything to help me warn you." Lyra's mother, Elder Mira, stood. "My daughter speaks truth. Her markings show no deception. We must act." The council debated. Minutes turned to hours. Finally, they agreed. They would increase security, inspect the artifact container before it was opened, prepare defenses. But Dae-hyun knew it wouldn't be enough. "You need more than defenses. You need to expose young Sik, show the galaxy what he's doing." "How?" Elder Mira asked. "Let him come to the summit. Let him give his presentation. And then we reveal the truth in front of everyone." Dae-hyun looked at the council. "But we'll need your help. And we'll need to move fast." "It's dangerous," one council member said. "Everything worth doing is dangerous," Dae-hyun replied. The council looked at each other. Then Elder Mira nodded. "We will help, but understand, human, if you fail, you will have doomed my people." "I won't fail." Lyra touched his hand. Her markings were steady gold. "We won't fail." But even as they made their plans, even as they prepared for the summit, Dae-hyun felt the weight of responsibility, so many lives depending on them. One wrong move and everything would fall apart. That night, he stood on a balcony overlooking Valar's capital. Lyra joined him. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said. "Yeah, worth fighting for." "Thank you, Dae-hyun, for everything." He looked at her, really looked at her. This alien girl who'd changed his life completely, who'd given him a reason to care again. "We're not done yet, I know. But whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me." Before he could respond, alarms blared across the city. Red lights flashed, and in the distance, explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. The attack had come early. Young Sik wasn't waiting for the summit. He was bringing the war to them now. The creatures poured through the streets like a living nightmare, hundreds of them, thousands. They came from the docks where the artifact container had been secretly delivered and opened. The trap had been sprung. Valoran people ran in panic. Their peaceful world had no real military, no weapons, no experience with war. They were scholars and artists and scientists, not soldiers. Daehyun grabbed Lyra's arm. "We need to get to the defense center, now!" They ran through chaos. Buildings burned, people screamed. The creatures were everywhere, hunting and killing. Daehyun shot any that got close, but his shock baton was almost out of power. The defense center was a fortified building in the city's heart. Elder Mira was already there, coordinating evacuation efforts. Her markings were flashing red with fear. "The council is scattered," she said when they arrived. "Half the city is on fire. Our security forces are overwhelmed. We're losing." "Where's the creature nest?" Daehyun asked. "There has to be a central point. Somewhere they're multiplying." Lyra pulled up scanning data. "The docks, Bay 12. The readings show massive biological activity. They're breeding there." "Then that's where we hit them." "With what army?" Elder Mira asked bitterly. "We have no soldiers, no weapons. We're defenseless. You have me." Everyone turned. Standing in the doorway was Bo-Ra in full military gear. Behind her were 3 ships worth of human soldiers. They were heavily armed and ready for war. "Bo-Ra?" Daehyun stared. "How? You didn't think I'd let you face this alone, did you?" She grinned. "I brought some friends. Volunteers who are tired of watching corporations get away with murder. You'll get court-martialed for this?" "Probably. But I'm okay with that." She turned to Elder Mira. "Ma'am, with your permission, we'd like to help save your world." Elder Mira's markings turned gold. "Permission granted. Gladly." Daehyun organized them quickly. His military training came flooding back. He divided the forces into 3 groups, one to evacuate civilians, one to hold defensive positions, one to assault the nest with him. "You're not going without me," Lyra said. "It's too dangerous. It's my world, my people. I'm going." Her markings flashed white with determination. "Besides, you'll need someone who understands Valoran technology. The dock systems might help us." She was right, and he knew it. "Stay close to me, always." "Always," she promised. They moved out. The assault team was 20 humans and 10 Valoran who had some combat training. Not much, but it would have to be enough. They fought through the streets, pushing toward the docks. Every corner brought more creatures. Every building hid more danger. Bo-Ra fought beside Daehyun like old times. "Just like the academy, huh?" "Except with alien monsters." "Minor detail." They reached the docks. Bay 12 was a nightmare. The artifact container sat open, empty. Around it, the creatures had built some kind of organic structure, a hive. They were multiplying there, breeding new ones every minute. "We need to destroy that," Daehyun said. "Explosives?" Bo-Ra suggested. "Won't work. Look at the structure. It's biological. It'll just regenerate." Lyra studied her scanner. "But there's a neural center, a brain essentially. It's coordinating them. If we destroy that, the whole hive collapses." "Where is it?" "Inside." "Deep inside." Daehyun looked at the hive. It was surrounded by creatures. Getting in would be nearly impossible. Getting out even harder. "I'll go." "Not alone you won't," Lyra said. "Lyra, we're past arguing. I'm coming." Bo-Ra grabbed his shoulder. "I'll lead the distraction. Give you a window to get inside. Make it count." Daehyun nodded. "If we don't make it out, you'll make it. You always do." She smiled. "That's why they call it humanity. We're too stubborn to die." The distraction worked perfectly. Bo-Ra's forces attacked from 3 sides, drawing the creatures away from the hive entrance. Daehyun and Lyra slipped inside during the chaos. The interior was organic and wrong. Walls that pulsed with life, sounds like breathing, the smell of decay. They moved through tunnels made of flesh and bone, deeper and deeper. Creatures attacked in the darkness. Dae-hyun's shock baton was useless now, dead. He fought with his hands and a blade he'd taken from a fallen soldier. Lyra used a Valoran energy weapon, her markings glowing bright white as she fired. They were a good team. He protected her. She protected him. They moved like they'd been fighting together for years instead of days. Finally, they reached the center. The neural nexus was massive, a brain the size of a small room, pulsing with sick light. Veins connected it to the entire hive. This was the heart of the nightmare. "How do we destroy it?" Dae-hyun asked. Lyra examined it carefully. "The dock's power systems. If I can reroute them, overload the neural tissue. It will kill the brain and collapse the hive." "Do it!" She worked at a nearby control panel, her fingers flying. Outside, they could hear the battle raging, explosions, gunfire, screaming. Their friends were dying to give them this chance. "Almost there," Lyra said. "Just a few more seconds." A creature lunged from the shadows, bigger than the others, faster. It knocked Dae-hyun aside and went straight for Lyra. She screamed and fell. The creature raised its claws for a killing blow. Dae-hyun threw himself between them. The claws raked across his back. Pain exploded through him, but he'd protected her. That's what mattered. He stabbed upward with his blade, into the creature's throat. It gurgled and collapsed. "Dae-hyun!" Lyra was crying. "You're hurt!" "Finish it," he gasped. "Complete the overload." She hesitated only a second, then turned back to the panel. Her hands shook as she entered the final commands. The neural nexus began to pulse rapidly. Faster and faster. "We need to run! Now!" Dae-hyun struggled to his feet. Lyra pulled his arm over her shoulder, supporting his weight. They ran as fast as they could through the tunnels. Behind them, the nexus began to scream, a sound that wasn't quite sound, but something felt in the bones. They burst out of the hive just as it exploded. The shockwave threw them forward. Dae-hyun hit the ground hard, his vision swimming. He heard Lyra calling his name, heard Bo-Ra shouting orders. Then someone was lifting him. When his vision cleared, he was on a ship. Medical equipment surrounded him. Lyra sat beside him, her hands holding his. Her markings were deep blue. "Hey!" he croaked. "You idiot," she said, but she was smiling through tears. "You almost died." Almost doesn't count. The hive collapsed. The creatures are dying. The city is saved. Good. Bo-Ra appeared. The galactic authorities arrived. They found young Sick trying to escape in orbit. He had evidence of everything on his ship, records of the operation, plans for more attacks. He's been arrested. What about Hanil's syndicate? Done. Finished. Their board is cooperating to avoid prosecution. Young Sick will spend the rest of his life in prison. Dae-hyun closed his eyes. It was over. They'd actually won. Days later, after the wounded were treated and the dead counted, the Valoran held a ceremony. The council stood before a crowd of thousands. Elder Mira spoke. "We thought we knew humanity. We thought they were dangerous, violent, untrustworthy." She looked at Dae-hyun, who stood awkwardly in formal clothes Lyra had found for him. "We were wrong. One human showed us what his species truly is. When called for help, he answered. When faced with death, he fought. When given a choice between safety and doing what was right, he chose right." The crowd erupted in approval. Their markings flashed gold in unison, lighting up the entire square. "Today, we forge an alliance with humanity, built not on treaties or politics, but on the friendship of two people who proved that our species can stand together, can fight together, can trust together." More cheering. Dae-hyun felt embarrassed by the attention. He'd just done what needed doing. Nothing special. Lyra stood beside him. Her markings were steady, warm gold. "They're right, you know. You are special. I just answered a distress call and saved my life and my world and countless others." She took his hand. "I've been assigned as Valoran's ambassador to human space. Someone needs to hunt down those remaining artifact containers before they hatch. Dangerous work. Very. I'll need a pilot. Someone crazy enough to answer distress calls from strangers. She smiled. Know anyone like that? Dae-hyun looked at the crowd, at the beautiful crystal city, at Bo-ra, who gave him a thumbs up, at this alien girl whose glowing markings had become as familiar to him as breathing. 5 years ago, he'd stopped caring, stopped believing people were worth saving. One distress call had changed everything. Yeah, he said. I know someone exactly like that. They walked through the cheering crowd together. Behind them, Valar's crystal spires caught the light. Ahead, a ship waited, and beyond that, a galaxy full of people who might need help. He'd answered one call. Now they'd answer them all, because that's what humans did. When someone was in trouble, when someone needed help, when someone sent out a desperate signal into the void hoping someone would care enough to answer, humans showed up. It wasn't about being the strongest, or the smartest, or the most advanced. It was about being the ones who answered. And Dae-hyun had finally remembered why that mattered. Lyra squeezed his hand. Her markings pulsed with colors he was still learning to read. But he understood this one. It was the color of hope, of new beginnings, of two people from different worlds choosing to face the universe together. Ready? She asked. He looked at her and smiled. Always. They walked toward their ship, toward their future, toward whatever came next. And for the first time in 5 years, Dae-hyun felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was supposed to do, being exactly who he was meant to be, a human who answered the call.